Sign it, Grace. Don't drag out the inevitable. The plastic clipboard slid across the edge of the bed, the pen pressing close to her trembling fingers. The monitor cast its pale green glow. A nurse gently guided Grace's hand, urging her to cooperate. Dr. Hale didn't lift his head. DNR. We've done everything possible. The boy has no meaningful chance of recovery. Grace didn't move. She laid her palm on Noah's burning forehead, her 10-year-old son breathing in threads thinner than silk. Noah isn't a statistic, she said loud enough for the sterile lights to hear. Ethan stepped in, his gray suit razor sharp, trailed by a team of experts. I've brought the best, he said evenly. The doctor tapped the blank line where her signature belonged. Technology calls this a dead end too. The word futile clattered to the floor like a cold coin. Grace stared at the paper, at the border between staying and letting go. Inside her, a voice screamed, surrender might be survival for adults, but it was death for her child. At that exact moment, the monitor sang a long, flat note, then stuttered back into rhythm, as if rejecting the grown-up's bargain. You're being selfish, someone muttered. Grace pressed her lips tight. If refusing to sign is selfish, then I'll own it. She pulled the DNR from their reach, folded it, and shoved it into her pocket. Her eyes burned with an ancient defiance no machine could quantify. The door opened. The hallway met her with the sting of disinfectant. At its far end, the elevator lit up. The ride down took only seconds, long enough for a mother to decide to defy the definition of futility. As the doors closed, reason plummeted with them. The elevator shuddered. Fluorescent light etched white streaks across her hand. Inside, Ethan rattled on about protocols, midnight consultants, predictive survival algorithms. I hired an entire team, he said. We're not giving up, but don't fight the data. Grace didn't argue. She saw her own reflection in the steel, an exhausted woman hollowed out. Numbers don't hold your child when he's burning with fever, she thought, but said nothing. Downstairs, white coats sliced through the lobby like arrows. The press was held back. The clean, polished world of money and procedure tried to smother the mysterious. On a garden bench beneath the glass atrium, Grace sat and felt for the folded DNR, edges worn from her grip. A fragment of memory flickered. Bluebird Road, the lullaby she sang when Noah was still swaddled. It flared, then vanished. She was afraid to speak, afraid her shaking voice would shatter hope. Ethan drifted away to answer a call. Promises of technology hummed faintly behind him. Grace bowed her head, fingers clenched around the paper, her heartbeat pounding like a small drum. If every proof said no, why did something inside her still whisper, yes? She pressed the page to her chest, as if swearing an awkward vow. A gust of air slipped through the door, carrying the sound of footsteps. At the edge of the glass, a boy stood clutching a bundle of worn lottery tickets. His eyes met Grace's, eyes that couldn't lie, and the story veered at the moment no one had scheduled. The boy walked closer, shoes frayed, a silver thread tied around his wrist. Want to buy a ticket? His voice cracked with sun. Before Grace could shake her head, he offered a torn one, half the number missing. This one's not for sale, he said. It's for you. Grace blinked. Why? Because you need something no one here sells. He glanced at the line of white coats. My name's Malik. I don't know hospitals. I only know a ripped ticket. And hope. His voice dropped softer, afraid to tear it further. Hope doesn't need evidence. If you keep this, you won't let the lights go out. A weary smile tugged at her lips. And what do you know about lights going out? I sleep on gas station steps, Malik answered calmly, as if reciting a bell schedule. When you have nothing, people say don't dream. But if I let the light die, I disappear. Holding on to something irrational, that's sometimes the only way to stay here. Rain scented the breeze. Grace took the torn ticket, its edge cutting her skin like a warning. Somewhere, a taxi honked. The experts still murmured about probabilities. But inside, a mother had just been taught the oldest language of humanity. Believe first, see later. She rose. Thank you, Malik. The boy nodded, retreating into shadow. Grace turned back toward the elevators, walking against the current of sterile light, clutching the ticket as if holding her son's hand. Back in the cold metallic room, she still held the ticket. Dr. Hale scribbled without looking up. We'll increase sedation at 6 p.m. Ethan stood by the window. "I've called another team," he murmured. Grace dragged a chair beside the bed, slipped the ticket into Noah's still hand. "Do you hear me, Noah? I have to tell you the truth." Her voice broke. "I almost signed, not because I wanted to leave you, because I was scared of your pain, scared of believing what no one else believes. But I'm here, and I'm staying." The monitor ticked coldly, metronome steady. 1, 2 beats. Then Noah's eyelids trembled, so faint she thought she imagined it. Grace didn't blink. "Someone's listening to you." "Random reflex," Dr. Hale said flatly, flipping the chart. "Don't assign meaning." Ethan exhaled hard, torn between the comfort of statistics and the terror of hope. Grace's voice sharpened. "Give me 24 hours. No increased sedation unless I'm present." Silence stretched. Finally, Dr. Hale set down his pen. "1 day, but don't exhaust him." Grace smiled without tears. She shoved the folded DNR deeper into her pocket, burying an unborn curse. "Noah, I was afraid. From now on, I choose to love you more than I fear." The monitor blipped off beat, so small only she noticed. Not a miracle, just enough for a mother to keep fighting. For the first time in weeks, the power in that room didn't belong to the machines, but to one fierce declaration: "I'm here." Night dropped heavy as a blanket. Grace sat straight, guarding every pulse. Each hour, she pressed the ticket into Noah's palm, whispered his name, repeated it like a prayer without a church. She recorded in her notebook: 9:05. Pinky finger twitch, 10:12. Breath deeper, 11:40. No change. She needed the notes to keep from lying to herself. At midnight, the nurse changed shifts, eyeing her log. "Maybe you're imagining it." Dr. Hale scribbled a single word: anomaly. "Don't overstimulate." Ethan stood between the two worlds, statistics he was told to trust, and the gaze of a father afraid to hope. Grace didn't argue. She carried on her quiet ritual, wiping his forehead, calling his name, pressing the ticket to his skin. The oxygen levels ticked up, then down. No promises. Yet at 1:18, 2:06, 3:30, they ticked up again, enough to turn randomness into a fragile pattern. At dawn, soft light bled through the blinds. Grace nodded faintly. "We'll keep this rhythm, Noah." She taped a note to the bed frame. "Do not increase sedation unless necessary." A young nurse moved to peel it off. Grace blocked her. "Just 1 day." "Those signals could be noise," Dr. Hale insisted. "I know," Grace replied calmly, "but noise is still sound. I'll filter it with repetition." She whispered again. Noah didn't answer, but his body seemed to remember the road back. A finger curling, a nostril flaring, a breath sliding past his throat like a stone rolling off a hill. Life, when it returns, doesn't blow trumpets. It knocks softly, and a mother listens. By the second morning, Grace stood at the bedside, hands braced on the mattress like clinging to a shore. Malik's voice echoed, "Give him what he still remembers." She realized the biggest door left unopened was memory. She drew a breath. "Noah," she murmured, "do you remember Bluebird Road?" Then, haltingly, she began. 3 notes, climbing 1 step and falling back safe again, steady as wheels on an empty road. No lyrics, just breath turned melody. A small flame lit in the sterile air. At first, the monitor didn't change. But by the 3rd round, Noah's nose flared, his lids trembled stronger. Grace held the rhythm, no drama, no break. This was the point of no return. Dr. Hale appeared at the doorway. "Don't overstimulate." Grace didn't stop. "I'm giving him back a familiar address," she said, voice steadier than her thoughts. Ethan glanced between them, then nodded slightly. "If there's even a chance, keep going." 2 more rounds. The monitor ticked upward, steady, undeniable. Noah's fingers stretched toward the torn ticket, as if reaching for a border he'd touched before. Grace placed it in his palm, holding it there. "I'm here. No matter how far you go, there's a way back." The ritual began that morning. Same hour, same rhythm, the same 3 notes. From that moment on, the story stepped out of the territory of raw data and into a space where only a mother could read the map. That afternoon, the electronic chart registered a cold word: anomaly. Dr. Hale marked it without conclusion. Beside that sterile entry, Grace opened her notebook. Columns of hours, small ticks lined up like sheet music so she wouldn't lose the beat. She kept the ritual. 9 a.m., 2 p.m., 8 p.m. The 3 notes of Bluebird Road, whispered until the room held nothing but breath and a mother calling her child's name. A young nurse, Lydia, leaned close. I saw his pinky move when you sang. That whisper was a tiny ally. Ethan stood by the glass, quieter now. The graphs were no longer his only anchor. If it's progress, it has to repeat, he said. And it did repeat. Slight, steady. Oxygen ticked up, drifted, ticked up again. Grace didn't rejoice. She practiced the discipline of hope. Record, compare, repeat. When warned, don't assign meaning, she smiled. I'm not assigning meaning. I'm keeping rhythm. At night, she held the torn ticket against the lamp, the jagged edges glowing like mountain ridges. We'll cross this range, she whispered. Through the glass, Dr. Hale folded his arms. When he finally stepped inside, his eyes lingered on her notebook longer than usual. Just keep doing it, he said, his words no longer so sharp. On the 3rd day, Noah drew a deep breath, unaided for several minutes. The record showed one more line, anomaly. Grace laughed quietly, as if afraid to wake a dream. Call it whatever you want, she whispered, as long as this road keeps repeating. And it did. Small enough to puzzle skeptics. Big enough for a mother to take another step deeper into uncharted ground. The 4th morning, gray clouds draped the city. Grace began right on time. After the first 3 notes, Noah made a faint sound, like paper brushing paper. She froze, thinking she'd imagined it. Then a whisper came, fragile but clear in its aim. Mom. The world contracted into one syllable. Grace gripped the bedrail, feeling the ground tilt toward her heart. I'm here, she answered, steadying her breath like a tightrope walker. Dr. Hale was already at the doorway. He stopped cold, eyes locked on the monitor. The heart line spiked a notch, then held. Lydia dropped her pen, muttering, "Oh God." Noah tried again. His lips were dry, but his face found direction. There was a boy. The words came broken, like someone wiring a battery in the dark. Grace bent closer. What boy, sweetheart? The boy with the torn ticket. Each word was a needle stitching through the long night. He called me back, said, "You don't need to win. Just believe." The machines had no way to capture that sentence. The ceiling camera stayed silent, a witness who couldn't write. Dr. Hale cleared his throat twice before he found words. Continue, but slowly. It wasn't an order anymore. It was a path reluctantly acknowledged. Grace held back tears. She placed the torn ticket into Noah's hand and held it there. I hear you, she said. And I believe. Noah closed his eyes, not sinking away, but resting. Outside, the day stayed gray. Inside, a door had opened where adults usually insist there's nothing. In the days that followed, the hospital learned to breathe in a new rhythm. Sedation tapered. Shifts logged an extra column. Ritual. Lydia taped a note above the bed. Bluebird time. For the first time in weeks, Noah's eyes stayed open for over a minute, following a strip of sunlight across the ceiling. When Grace called his name, he answered with a tiny, yeah, enough to push silence off its pedestal. Grace bought a simple wooden frame at the gift shop. She lined it with white paper, placed the torn ticket at the center, and hung it above the bed like a map. Here, she said, touching the jagged edge, is where we almost got lost. Noah stared, the corner of his mouth lifting into the shadow of a smile. Ethan stayed longer now. He read through her notebook without interrupting, then set his pen on the table's edge, like signing a quiet treaty. From now on, numbers would learn to speak human. Dr. Hale used the word anomaly less. Instead, he wrote, clinically meaningful response. He stayed cautious. There will be setbacks. Grace nodded. When we go backward, we'll keep the rhythm. One afternoon, she slipped in a variation, added the word home to the melody. Noah pressed his lips together, then whispered, home. 2 perfect syllables, sweet as candy. The clocks kept ticking, but they no longer held the story's voice. That night, they dimmed the lights. The room filled with sounds. Voices, the rustle of pillows, even a faint laugh. Silence, once the only language, had become merely the pause between sentences. Grace closed her notebook. Silence is no longer our language, she said, and just then a light knock tapped the door, like someone coming back to finish a handoff. It was as small as a fingernail on glass. Lydia cracked the door. Outside stood Malik. "May I come in for a minute?" he asked. Grace nodded. The room hushed, making space for the boy who had planted the first seed in the darkest days. Malik stood before the framed ticket. He looked up at Noah and whispered, like pouring a glass of water, "Hey man." Noah blinked, weak but focused. Ethan stepped back. Dr. Hale started to remind him of regulations, then stopped. He lowered his mask, studying the boy for the first time. "I came to give this back," Malik said, touching the frame. "Last time I only lent it. Now it belongs to you." Grace smiled. "It was yours." Malik shook his head. "I kept it so my light wouldn't go out. Here, the light shines for someone else. I need to go find a new one for me." He handed Grace a blank, untorn ticket. "This is for you. When you're scared, write Noah's name on it." "Don't write numbers." Ethan opened his mouth to offer help. Malik lifted a hand politely. "Save it for someone who needs it more. I only need this." He touched his chest. "To be believed in." Grace placed one hand on Noah's, the other on Malik's shoulder. "Now it's yours." Malik repeated, no ceremony. 5 more minutes, Dr. Hale murmured. Malik nodded, stepped back. Before leaving, he told Noah, "Don't worry about winning, okay? Just breathe. Every breath is one step home." The door closed. The guiding torch no longer rested with the messenger boy. It belonged fully now to a mother and the child learning the road back. The day Noah was moved out of intensive care, a light rain fell, tapping the glass roof like a counting rhythm. Lydia slipped a note into Grace's pocket, "Bluebird time," the phrase that had become the team's heartbeat. Dr. Hale signed the discharge papers, pausing with his pen. "I don't have a full explanation, but I do have data. When you were here, his numbers improved. Not a miracle, just a living bond." Ethan met them in the hall, no consultants in tow. He opened the car door like opening a new chapter, one without slides. Before leaving, Grace looked back at the old room, the framed, torn ticket still hanging there. Lydia would take it down, send it home. "Hang it by his new bed," Grace said, "like a map." In the weeks that followed, the media called Noah the miracle boy. Grace refused the label. A mother just learned to hold rhythm before the numbers could change, she told them. Ethan launched the Still Hope Foundation for things often overlooked, folding chairs for parents to sleep beside their kids, late-night meal cards, lullaby corners, uninterrupted visiting hours. Dr. Hale joined, suggesting a new entry for the records, meaningful response, instead of anomaly. One afternoon, they brought Noah to the park. He walked slowly, then faster. When Grace hummed the 3 notes, he answered, "Home," round and solid like a pebble. On the playground wall nearby, a new mural gleamed. The torn ticket transformed into a streak of light. Passers-by stopped to read the words. "Silence is no longer our language." It wasn't an ending. It was a new order, where hope didn't need evidence to be allowed to exist. A year later, the city had grown used to thin wristbands marked with a tear, the symbol of still hope. In late-night hospital rooms, small slips of paper read, "Bluebird time," not a dosage schedule, but a ritual of remembrance. Young nurses said children sometimes unclenched their fists at the sound of 3 notes, as if called to an address no map could list. Grace and Noah passed the corner store. A radio DJ spoke of the 3-note lullaby spreading through hospitals. Ethan appeared in the press less, spending long hours in waiting rooms, learning how to listen. At a medical conference, Dr. Hale said something unusual. "Some things don't need to be proven before they begin to work." The hall fell silent, then scribbled. One night, Grace returned to the gas station where Malik used to sleep. The steps were empty. The owner said he'd gone to live with an aunt, taking night classes. In the foundation's mailbox lay an envelope with no return address. Inside, another torn ticket and a handwritten note. "Don't forget to write the name." Grace smiled. Placing it beside the frame in Noah's room, they never called him a miracle. They called him Noah, and they called their story by an old word, home. At bus stops, in parks, in hospital corridors, sometimes someone would hum 3 notes. Another would pick it up. A nameless crowd would share one breath. Malik hadn't awakened anyone. He had only reminded the world of what it thought it had forgotten. Hope doesn't need proof, just a spark small enough to keep life burning.